Hello everyone, just testing out streaming with OBS. And testing again. One thing with this just flight arrow, we'll get the fuel selector on, fuel pump on, and if you do this in the real airplane, Piper Arrow, pretty much any fuel injected airplane, this will flood the engine. We got the mixture rich and the pump on, that gives the fuel to the engine. The normal priming procedure for this airplane is usually to have the throttle cut a bit, or cracked. You have the mixture cut and the fuel pump off. Two ways you can do it. The manual says turn the fuel pump on, mixture rich, for a specified amount of time, so you get a certain fuel flow, or if the fuel flow peaks, and then you'd pull the mixture back and then turn the fuel pump off. What you can also do is just shove both the throttle and the mixture forward, turn the fuel pump on for about 3 seconds, fuel pump off, throttle cracked, and then fire it up. Shout clear prop. Now see if this was A2A simulations, that would not have started. But here we are. Okay, I was just reviewing the stream a bit, making sure it's working. I'm probably going to do either in a stream or a dedicated video, probably the stream, and just do another flight where I discuss some of the things that I do and do not like about this plane. There's a handful of videos out there that discuss that already, about the features of the plane. But I think there's some things that are worthy of note. Basically, some realism aspects are probably sacrificed, like the inability to flood the engine, or some other mistakes, like how the rudder trim is backwards. We're going to be taking off out of Auburn, California, runway 25. We'll go buzz around and see how the stream works. What I also noticed in the last stream with GE Force, I don't know if it happened during the stream, but pretty much anytime recording with GE Force as a regular video, the audio gets desynced, like my voice gets desynced from the audio of the simulator. So I don't know if it happened during the stream, but I noticed it in the post-stream upload when I go back and look at it. So that's something I'll be looking for in this one. I notice I still sometimes hear the crackling of the microphone, so I'm assuming that's a constant issue. But I'm hoping the frame rate and the resolution is satisfactory. So far it's looking good, and I like the controls of OBS. We'll set 1200. Let's do a run-up. I haven't done a run-up in this plane yet. Or check out oil pressure, temperature, the amps are good. Fuel quantity is showing about right. Fuel pressure. Or check out oil pressure, temperature, the amps are good. Fuel quantity is showing about right. Fuel pressure. This thing doesn't like to idle below 1,000, I guess. See the throttle's at 0. Sometimes it is set like that. And a little before takeoff checklist. Fuel proper tank, fuel pump will be on, gauges checked, alternate air closed, seat belts. So that's that. Takeoff checklist, mixture set, prop set, fasten belts, flaps are set, we'll do 0, trim tab set. Right there is neutral. And the rudder trim, I haven't touched it, but it should be fine. Controls free, door latched, air conditioner off. And we'll get the anti-collision on too, separate from the rotating beacon in this model. I'd say Auburn traffic, Aero 4131 Charlie taking off runway 25 Auburn. Okay, here we go. Okay, we'll shoot for about 90 knots, and at this airport, a little bit of a left turn for noise abatement. Gear is up. Okay, we'll turn, do a crosswind departure here. There goes Auburn. Here we're over 1,000 feet, we'll do the after takeoff. Fuel pump off, landing light off. Fuel pressure's holding in the green. Flaps are up, gears up. Now some technique. I think that trim must have kicked in there. Now some technique on the climb out, I'll remove the yoke so we can see the instruments better and trim a bit more here. But it's perfectly fine to take off with full power, or continue climbing with full power, throttle full and the propeller lever full. Those are the maximum allowable ratings for the engine, and they can do that forever. There's no time limitation. A lot of times the checklist will have you reduce the manifold pressure to 25 inches and then back down to 2500 RPM. Now what this does is it's going to reduce your rate of climb if you're holding your best rate of climb speed Vy of 90 knots, which means it'll take you longer to get to your cruising altitude, and cruising altitude is when you get the real cooling effect of the engine. So we know it's not very stable with some of the turbulence, but let's take a look at our rate of climb if we can get this stabilized. Looks like the nose should be right around on the horizon, or the bump of the engine at least. So we're holding about 95 knots, and we're getting about 800 to 900 feet per minute. Let's go back to full power. Now we can pitch up a little bit more. I was actually noticing more of a difference earlier, but not too much now. Basically the prop makes noise. Now if you're really concerned about noise, after takeoff you can just pull it back to 24. That'll be a good drop. Or 26 I mean. But it's always good to climb away from the ground faster. And then what you can usually do is just set up a cruise climb, where you climb a little bit faster, around 100 knots. And it gets you going faster. That lowers the nose slightly, and it gives you more airflow under the engine, or going into the engine, to help with the cooling. When you have the nose higher, maintaining Vy at the reduced power setting, what you could be doing is hurting the back cylinders. You know, you'll get the CHTs might rise up on you. Can't really tell though when you don't have a CHT gauge at all on this plane. That's where it's good to have an engine monitor, where you can monitor the CHT of every engine, the cylinder head temperature. I'll just level up here at 6,000. We'll let the airspeed build before we set cruise power. Let's look outside, try to establish what that level flight pitch attitude is going to be. Giving it some nose down trim as we're accelerating. This is probably our cruising speed. We'll reduce the power to about 20 inches. We're not going anywhere fast. Might actually slow us down a bit. And I'll get the prop back. Let's do 23, that sounds fun. And now here's something that makes me question it a little bit, is leaning. Let's see if it does it. Sometimes I noticed a couple flights early when I lean, the fuel flow actually goes up, which doesn't make any sense to me. Leaning the engine is specifically restricting the amount of fuel going into the engine. So here's full rich, and then we'll lean, and it's not doing anything. And then it goes down. Now we do see an effect on exhaust gas temperature. This gauge seems to be functioning, so if I lean, the exhaust gas temperature is getting hotter to a point. This seems to be about peak. Oh, maybe a little bit more. No, still wants to peak. Make sure we're still flying upright. There we go. Now the EGT drops. So now we're on the lean side of peak EGT. Probably don't want to do that for too long. I'd have to double check the PUH, what kind of power setting we're at. If we're at 60% power and below, you can't really harm the engine with the mixture lever. But let's get about 100 degrees rich of peak. So every tick mark is 25 degrees difference. So if peak was right about there, and you can move this indicator to help you identify where peak EGT was. Then you enrichen from there 100 degrees, which is going to be a full measure down here. Seems to be kind of that's a big swing. But that's theoretically 100 degrees rich of peak. That'll give us best performance. Now if you do peak EGT, that'll give you best fuel economy. Now let's note the difference. This is 100 degrees rich, and we're doing about 9 gallons an hour, 9.5 almost. Now let's lean to best economy, which is right back where peak EGT was. And the fuel flow is like just below 9. I have to double check the menu if that's accurate. I feel like it should swing a little bit more, but maybe not. I have heard that there's a clean cockpit version in the files. I think you go into the files and disable something or move something around. I wonder, I really like the worn cockpit, but I wonder if that affects the windows. You can see how dirty the windows are, and if you push your head outside, how much clearer it is. I think I would like to have the clean windows, but have the dirty worn cockpit like this, because this is natural, but you'll clean the windows. Also, if you remember from the 152 stream, the temperature gauge is actually correct, and this one, 0, lines up with 32 Fahrenheit. I feel like that was a simple mistake that Microsoft Flight Simulator made. Get back up to 6,000. Audio is very crackly. I think that's the microphone, and it kind of makes me upset because I think this is I'm using a mod mic, an MOD mod mic. I think it was like $40 when I bought it, so I think I'm gonna have to find a new mic solution. But I don't think people have this problem when I'm on Discord or anything like that, so I don't know if it's just a streaming problem, because I think if I just record a video, it's fine as well. So that's very interesting. But mainly if the frame rate is decent, the resolution is good, you're not noticing any audio desyncing, I'd at least like to see if I've got that under control. And then I'll probably look for a new microphone solution, and then I think we'll be ready to really take off on streaming, as we desperately await A2A's arrival to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Look at this wonderful cloud. See, the simulator is pretty darn good, especially for out-of-the-box stuff. A little bit of natural turbulence every once in a while, it's pretty nice. Yeah, I think the problem must just be, I don't know, maybe something with the microphone, a wire. I think we'll go back to Auburn or whatever nearest airport we're over now. Do some landings. I can show you some more weird anomalies with this airplane. Just try to figure out where we are. Here's a good example of lost procedures we could probably do. Oh, there's an airport, looks like. I wonder if that's Georgetown. So let's just not worry about the exact altitude for now. Let's go into Sky Vector. We took off out of Auburn. Let's load up the Hangtown VOR, which is on 115.5. And then Sacramento's on 15.2. 15.5 and 15.2. So we come over here to the nav radio, and I think we have to turn it on. 15.5 and 15.2. So I guess, let's see, how do you like the camera? Yeah, the camera system in Microsoft Flight Simulator seems pretty good. I could have sworn when it first came out there was easier controls to translate the camera up, down, left, and right, and forward. And I feel like some key bindings may have gotten deleted and then it doesn't work, so maybe it has to get rebound, I'm not sure. But being able to set new views, like if I wanted to have a view like up here or something, there's a key to just set, like to save camera position 1, and then I can shift back here, and then I can hit the other button to go to camera position 1. So that's pretty cool. And then takes you back to whatever default is. So I like that. I use track IR a lot, but if I'm not using track IR, like if I pause it here, then just being able to use the mouse like an X-plane, I really like that. Basically everything is an upgrade over prepared in Microsoft, the old FSX I think. X-plane did a good job. And then I know there's extra options up here too, with the showcase is the drone I think. And I was playing around with that back in August when it came out. So there's a lot more camera options that should suit everyone's needs. I'm using that, very picky on that, as long as I can control the views I want in the cockpit and just being able to look outside. So basically lost procedures. You want to climb, circle, configure, and confess. So we've already climbed. We climb so that we can see, so we can get radio reception, and then we circle so that we don't get further lost. And then we want to configure the airplane for more slower flight. So let's go down to like 15 inches. Maybe a lower RPM if we can get it. You know, everything to reduce fuel flow. Lean it out a little bit more. Make sure the fuel is balanced. We could probably do more in the right tank, so let's switch to the right tank with the fuel pump on. Right tank. Pressure's holding. Fuel pump off. It's holding. So the airplane's going to slow down. We'll put it into a bank. Give it some nose up trim. Usually in real life, in anything below 30 degrees of bank, it should kind of hold that bank. We'll just do maybe a shallower bank. That should work for now. And then, if you can't figure out where you are, then you need to talk to ATC and have them help you out. And if you're anywhere near busy airspace, you should probably start talking to ATC sooner to make sure you don't get into deeper airspace. Okay, and that's not the button I wanted, so we go back to our thing. So Hangtown is on 15.5. Let's figure out that radio. That's the top of VOR. I'll hold a little bit right aileron here. So we have a from indication. Let's just spin the dial. And now it's a to indication. Let's go back the other way. We want to maintain the from and get a centered needle. Here it comes. Somewhere around here, come on. So, it looks like we're on the, about the 310 radio off of Hangtown. And we should identify, so if we flick it over to ident, both of them, and then we'll listen nav 1. Let's see what happens, turn this way. So you can hear the Morse code in that one. Let's put nav 2. Scroll that up. We can hear the Morse code in that one. so the VORs are identified as well. So we got from indication, to indication. We'll just keep swinging it through. This from again. So now we're on the 0, 3, 0 radial. So 30 and 310. Let's kind of level off, roll out a bit here. So 310 off Hangtown is about here, and 030, this is a 036 line, so we can get kind of close. So yeah, that looks like the Georgetown Airport. So we're facing northeast right now, so that's Georgetown. Let's go land there. They have an airport elevation of 25 feet, and the runway is 3,000 feet long. And there's no right-hand pattern, so we can just make left-hand traffic. So about 3,600 will be the traffic pattern altitude. Let's reduce the power more. Well, let's just keep it around 15. It's good to descend at 15 inches so that you don't cool the engine too much. I know that's kind of an old wives' tale. So some people will say shock cooling is not an issue. Some people will say it well, so maintaining around 15 inches is good. We're already in the flaps range, so if we want to descend more, we could just add flaps. And it's also, you can also increase the propeller RPM. That'll help slow you down. So we can put some flaps down. Oh, I guess the gear warning comes on if you do anything greater than flaps 10. And we can set up somewhat of a spiral out here. I'm not using real world weather this time, so the wind should just be relatively calm. So we'll probably set up for a landing on this runway, whichever one that's going to be. I guess in real life we'd have the chart supplement with us, so we can pull that up. And we can see Georgetown has 1.6 and 3.4, so we'll land on 1.6. It's got a PAPI, 3-degree glide path, threshold crossing at 20 feet. There's trees, and the displaced threshold. Is there a displaced? Yep, that's a displaced threshold. It's an area of the runway where you can take off, but you can't land. They don't want you landing at the end, the very end of the runway, because your glide path would be too close to the trees. So we'll come out and try to do a little more proper pattern entry. Okay, we need to descend more. Let's get that power back down to 10. We'll rich in the mixture as we're going down. The fuel tank is on the fullest tank. The frame rates seem to be suffering a little bit. I noticed this in a longer distance flight I did before. Sometimes the frames would suffer for a bit, like it's trying to load something. I'm not sure if it's loading some photoreal scenery or what. See, it's smoothened out a bit now. So our 3,600 is the pattern we said, and we're down to 47. Let's go ahead and spin around. Why are we still... So we can still hear the idents, because these volumes, but I have none of the switches activated. I feel like that should have turned it off already without touching those volume knobs. Okay, that's the airport. I wanted to do a 45 entry. Maybe we're a little bit too tight. Again, it's kind of a test stream here. Not everything is going to be proper example. Alright, let's get the flaps up for now. Right around pattern altitude here. While we're on this straightaway, we can check the heading. South, south. Okay, we'll make our heading inbound now for the 45 entry to the traffic pattern. We'll get the mixture mostly richened. And we'll fly around 90 knots in the pattern, at least on the downwind. I did say 2600. And we'll enter the downwind now. Alright, middle of the runway is a good time to do gas, proper tank, undercarriage down, mixture rich. Fuel pump on, we need some more power. Coming up abeam the numbers. We'll go flaps 10. And we'll get that landing light on. And here's our landing checklist complete. Here we'll turn base and go flaps 20. Or 25 I think it is in the Piper. Too much down. We'll check final for traffic. We'll turn final. I won't do the last flaps yet. Might have gotten us a little bit too low. Let's see. Okay. Okay, we'll do the last flaps now. Well, they said there'd be a pappy, but I don't see no pappy. And they definitely got these trees here. Here we'll go power to idle. Now here's where I can show you something else. This arrow would have stopped flying a little bit longer ago than that. Usually around like 70 knots or so. This thing just kind of comes down to the runway, but look at how I can just keep this nose up forever and ever and ever. Not good. Also, we need brakes. But yeah, people were also demonstrating this with their other videos as well. Typically, when you do soft field takeoff, you hold the yoke all the way back until the nose starts to come up, and then you relax it a bit to keep the nose wheel just off the ground. But I think this thing comes up straight away. And there it goes. And then you can hear the tail scraping. Alrighty, well I think that's going to be good enough for this test stream using OBS. We'll see how the post recording is, if YouTube has a post recording. But yeah, once I start streaming for real, probably integrating this airplane into Air Hauler 2, I have to see how I can buy it in that program. I didn't see the list before I bought this plane, so we'll see how that works. Nice view of the foothills going towards Tahoe. And some basic shutdown stuff will get the avionics off. And these guys are off. I didn't do any after landing. Terrible. Set that parking brake. Mags off. Master off. I'll leave that beacon switch on. Then if you walk away from the airplane, if you see the beacon on, you know you left the master switch on. If you left the master switch on, it means you probably left the magnetos on too. Alright, well thanks for joining me in this stream, and hope to see more of you next time. I know this is extremely late, so I wasn't expecting very many people. But like I said, it was mainly just a test, and I'm still getting used to the Just Flight Aero. But overall, it's pretty good as a good higher quality add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator, while we wait for A2A and the other high quality add-ons to make their way over. See you next time.